every one of us, because it is important that we learn absolute truth. Not this truth, but the absolute truth. We have to come to conclusions about things, because as this book has been written, it's been written in such a way where if you do not have a point of reference, then it's very possible you'll get steered in other directions that will not prove to be very profitable or fruitful in the long run, such as if you don't understand that as a black American and as other of those tribes of Israel, but as a black American coming into America as slaves and being auctioned off, like they auction off cattle and how we was treated, that this story is about you. This Bible tells you of your journey. So you have a point of reference to a point of your destiny. It's very important that you come to truly not disbelieve it, but know that it's absolute truth. We know that there's been so many things put in our way to make sure that we would never find our way back. It is definitely something that is very present. According to what has been written, we would be a people that would be totally lost in the wilderness of the Western Hemisphere of North America. And the reason why we would be lost, as it says, my people are destroyed, what? For a lack of knowledge. In other words, that knowledge that pertains to them, exclusively theirs. And therefore, as it says in the book of Numbers, chapter 23, for from the top of the rock I see him, and from the hill I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be recognized among the nations. And we fit that description. We're not recognized among the nations of the people. We're not even immigrants. You know, we don't have immigrant status. We are captives and put in slavery, and we have been cruelly dealt with unrighteously as their property, even to this day. So Yahweh God has told us and given us a description of what will take place. And in Deuteronomy chapter 28, he even goes on to tell us that we would have so many obstacles to overcome. And the obstacles that we will have to overcome, all of it would be a sign to us that these things pertain to us and it doesn't pertain to anybody else. And it says, when we would see these things in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 28, when we would see these things, many of us, as it states here, what it says,
and Yahweh shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
See, so our salvation doesn't come through man. And it goes up that in these times that we would be where, say, they would smite us and smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And as we go up to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 20, it says what?
Yahweh shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thy heart unto, to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings,
Yes.
whereby thou hast forsaken.
See, so we have forsaken our God, and for the wickedness of our doing, Yahweh gave us unto circumstances that would not be agreeable, and therefore, in so doing, we would have cursing vexation, and we would be mad for the sight of our eyes, and knowing as we begin to unfold and knowing the truth that the circumstances will be as such that as is stated in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies. See, these aren't your friends, which Yahweh thy God shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until thou have been destroyed. And he has, and we have been destroyed. There's no question of our oppression in this country, in the Western Hemisphere of North America. We have definitely been destroyed as a people, and what that destruction is that when you don't know who you are, when you can't tell your children the circumstances by which will better them, and that you have not put it in your own life to bring about circumstances that will uplift them, then the children will only be ever oppressed, ever stumbling in a land where it says in verse 65, and it says, and among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy feet have rest, but Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. Because we would see circumstances occurring around us. And as it says in Leviticus 26, it told us why we would feel that way. Leviticus 26, verse 37 says, and ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies, and they shall fall one upon another. Yes, we do fall one upon another because we really hinder each other, and we, even when this man is not there doing us any harm, we do ourselves harm by imploding within our own community, by shooting the community up, by robbing, selling drugs, by prostituting our daughters, and our daughters participating in it many times. And they shall have no power to stand before your enemies. So we fall upon each other, and we incur certain circumstances in our own life because we don't know the truth of what we should be about. And we can only find it in this book that they call the Bible. So Yahweh God has said this to us. And therefore, we must begin to reconstruct by what has been written in this book so that we can unfold back into our rightful possession and our rightful state of mind, so that we can give our children, so that we can be more of an influence for the uplifting of ourselves, of those that are around us. It doesn't matter whether people agree. No matter how many degrees they have, they cannot construct a better plan that's written in this book that we might return. And one of the things that they have to tell us is who we are, and tell us what we should to do by what is prescribed in this book of the law, the Torah. And that is to tell us that we're Israel, and that we came here, and that we were sold, and therefore our journey must be back through the same steps that we came. We came because we broke the commandments. We have to step back and begin to keep it. There's no other way. There's no other thing that needs to be talked about more than what to us to return. And what we must return back in keeping of the commandments. There's no other, you don't have to inscribe nothing else. Because these things that we see, when we see strangers that has come from other parts of the country, open up businesses in our community, and therefore prosper in our community by giving us high prices, and we go into their stores and we buy. Yahweh God put this before us so that we might become conscious and ask ourselves, why is this happening? That a stranger, someone that don't even belong to the country, was never a person that came here as you have, come here and take up circumstances, and that they're given in this country a status better than you when you gave more to America than anybody here. And when you read your history, and you read black history, this is a total fact. America should make you the national treasure because your ancestors and you have given so much to promote the well-being of America. One, you have never sabotaged or put yourself in a way that you would sabotage the sensitive security of this country. One, the majority of black people don't even know it. Strangers know more about the political structure of this country than you, and you live here. Because America has accepted them. America has never accepted you. And once you get that on your head, it should not make you angry. Because as Yahweh said, happy art thou, Israel, for who's like unto thee. He says there's no one like you. Because all you got to do is understand that your plight is assigned to you to deliver you. That's why it says in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 42, the stranger that is within you, and these are strangers, they come from different countries, shall get up over thee very high. Yes, they own businesses. You go in there and cash your check, how many black Americans you see. They own the grocery stores. They own the businesses. And this shouldn't make you mad. But this is a sign. Thou shalt come down very low. And you are low. But you support their dream. Their dream is that what you never had. Not one slave that was beat up, castrated in every way, had any dream of prosperity coming into America in the hollow of a ship, being tortured, chained, where he couldn't get up and deal with his own waste, where he would take it and spill it someplace else, but he had to sit there and urinate and defecate on himself. There's no one can tell me, and he had to smell that stench, that he ever could have a dream. That was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, and it purged in his very consciousness. He was not coming to America to fulfill a dream. It wasn't a dream of his. It was a dream of somebody else that would torture him, demoralize him, do the worst that they could think about him, and have sexual pleasures with him. Would rape the woman, the very same woman they would call names, call her all kind of names. Yet still, he would go down and leave his wife and have physical contact. So I'm saying to you, when you understand this, it should make you mad. It should make you to where you say, let me find an answer so I can begin to turn this around. Because it ain't getting better. It's going to get worse. The freedom you have now was a freedom that was given to you by Yahweh. But when you look at the impact of slavery and lynching in America, had Yahweh not intervened, we were finished. Because he was going to castrate all the men. And that's what he was doing. When he was riding to do any harm, he was taking vengeance on the men. Very few women got hung. There was some, but the men got hung and castrated by greater numbers. He has been so jealous of us, and don't even let nobody tell you that we never fulfilled the dream of America. We did. But every time we did, they made sure that they threw something to offset it. Black Wall Street, everybody should get the movie, should get the book and read it. Because it wasn't that black people was ever lazy, that they didn't want. They wanted so much that the more intellectual of them would come together and they build a town. They became very wealthy, and the whites became very jealous. And therefore, they savagely, what they always say, we raped the white woman. He don't want her, but he wants us to think that we want her, so it makes her feel important. What it is that if you can remember recently, or not quite, well, where this white lady said some black men had taken her children. As many kids we have, we want some white kids. We want white kids. We couldn't think of nothing else to take but some white kids, and we got some kids of our own.
Which was stand out.
That's right.
People you do walk around white
kids.
Okay.
And it almost started a real racial confrontation. And this is what happens. They want us to believe that we're running behind them, that we want what they want. We're not interested in what white people have. We just in the mix. And therefore, being in the mix, we get entangled. But anytime we have a place of our own, they start thinking about how they can what? Disassemble it. Anytime we go and we can't do nothing for ourselves without them intervening to make sure it's not prosperous to where we let his hand go. He wants us to run behind it. His dream, America economics, is not hard to figure out. Everybody else has. It's not hard. The thing about it is that we are a people that is in transition. And therefore we have run from one thing to another because one, nobody has really began to teach us the truth. Elijah Muhammad told us we were Muslims. There's nobody that has ever read extensively into the history could prove that black people sold in America, that these black people sold in America was Muslims. There's no way that we can never prove that these black people sold in America, according to literature, that they were Christians. You can't prove it. You cannot prove. But if you go into the Torah and begin to read the what is being prescribed, it fits them totally. Deuteronomy chapter 28, ain't nobody came and was sold in the United States of America or even in Europe. No European white man was sold in this country or even in Europe on an auction block as taken from another part of the land and brought to another part other than us. These are signs that we would begin to mobilize ourselves and return. We're not talking about a multitude returning. When one returns, millions and thousands have returned. Why? Because that individual will breathe forth children, and if their children listen, they will breathe forth children, because the nation, any nation, is on the back of their offspring. And when you don't have control of your offspring, you cannot pass the baton of rulership comfortably, because the children are fragmenting and in disarray, and they cannot take up the rulership comfortably, and as the parents give them the baton, they drop it. So if you cannot mobilize your youth, then you cannot progress to having a stabilized nation. So it's very important that you harness that youth in its youngest age to let them know how important it is for their identity to be known, and that they care about it and utilize it to promote their well-being. It's very important. So, as it says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearken not unto the voice of Yahweh thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he command thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So he said, this is going to be upon you as a sign. What is a sign? It gives you a message that where you're going is the right path. And this is why the Shabbat is your sign. And what is the sign for? To tell you you're being clean. You're being sanctified. He said the Shabbat is a sign between me and you. Even in the New Testament it says that the Greeks seek wisdom and the Jews seek a sign. But we had our sign, keeping the Torah. But since we did not adhere to it by the order that was structured, that those that was commissioned to teach it, that allowed it to go to the wayside, and then those that when they knew it, they wouldn't tell the people. So the people, not having structure, went about their business, and when other people came in that didn't even know, they instituted their own ways, and therefore the people fell by the wayside. But now we can come back and we can begin to unravel the mistruths that has been given to us in abundance. And the thing about it is that when we go, we have to realize that Yahweh God has said these things to us. He says in Jeremiah 18:15, Jeremiah 18:15 tells us what had transpired to this day with us as a people. Jeremiah 18:15. And it says here, because my people have forgotten me. See, Yahweh God, they have forgotten. We have not retained our God. He said, because my people have forgotten me. And therefore, because we have forgotten, Yahweh has been displeased. If we go to Jeremiah 23, Yahweh is displeased because there were those that made this happen, which think to cause my people to forget my name. So they have caused us to forget the name of our God. And Yahweh God has so stated to us in Isaiah 42. In Isaiah 42. And this is very important because when we forgot the name of Yahweh God, we forgot the path to return back. Isaiah 42, verse 22 says,
but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared and hold, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none deliver it, for a spoil, and none saith, restore.
Yes, see, it's no one is going to help us. In Isaiah 43, verse 22, because see, nobody's going to help us, believe me. And nobody is going to say restore, but Isaiah 43, verse 22, it says, but thou hast not called upon me, O Jacob, but thou hast been weary of me, O Israel. And therefore, it has also been said that we were not encouraged in Isaiah, and we was not encouraged to call on the name of Yahweh God. But Yahweh God wants us to call his name. And as he says in Isaiah 60, he tells Isaiah 60, 6 to 7, Isaiah 60, 62, 62, 6 to 7. It says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace, day nor night. Ye that make mention of Yahweh, keep not silent. See, it says, Yahweh says, don't stop calling his name. Why? In Malachi chapter 4, Malachi chapter 1, verse 4. Yahweh says here, Malachi 14, 1:14, chapter 4, he says, but cursed be the deceiver which has in his flock a male, and vowed and sacrificed unto Yahweh a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, said Yahweh of hosts, and my name is dreadful. He said it is dreadful among the heathens. He said, my name is dreadful. If his name is dreadful, what does that mean? They know. They know. That's the only way his name could be dreadful. In other words, they know it, but they hid it. And they ain't about telling you. That's right. So he said, because you forgot the name. Because Yahweh God says also in Zechariah, and this is very, very important. They know the name. They just don't want you to call it. And you call on Christ. They ain't stopping you from calling on Christ. You can call on Christ all you want. They ain't worrying about that. Let me tell you something. This man is about deceitfulness. He is very misleading in the things. He'll throw you a bone to keep you away from the real truth of it. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to be on guard. So in Zechariah chapter 10, verse 12, but I want to, okay, it says, and I will strengthen him in Yahweh, and they shall walk up and down in his name, said Yahweh. So what Yahweh did, God said, he says that he's going to strengthen us in his name. In his name. And we will walk up and down in his name. That's the power that you have. That's the power that you have. Your power is in the name of the true God. And he says, don't keep silent. Call that name. He said, call it. That's your in Psalm 124, verse 8, he said, our help is in the name of Yahweh, who made heaven and earth. And therefore, Yahweh God, as it says in Psalm 28, Psalm 28. Yeah, see, you don't have any other hope but in the name of your God. And if you reject that, who's going to help you? No one can help you when you've been told where your help is and you don't pursue it. In Psalm 28, verse 7, it says here that
Yahweh is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped.
yeah, see,
My heart greatly rejoices.
That's right.
That's my song I like to.
Yeah. Yahweh is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart greatly rejoices, and with my song will I praise him. So Yahweh God, he is our strength and he is our help. We must trust in him. You understand what I'm saying? So the point is to acquire that. Why? Psalm 47 verse 7, 47, Psalm 47 verse 7, 47 verse 7. Why?
And Yahweh is the king of all the earth.
Yeah, see, he's the king of all earth. Our God, it says, for Allah Hayamah is the king of all the earth. He's the king of all that's happening down here. No matter all the evil, he rules over.
And that's why they're trying to beat tomorrow.
Well, hey.
Because they think they got a better chance to
Well,
escape it.
the point is that it said the fullness thereof, belongs to Yahweh. So wherever he goes, he can't escape. You understand? I mean, the